Hello and welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us for another session of this very special event, The Sacred Wound as a Portal to Your Awakening, where you will learn from incredible teachers, psychologists, academics, spiritual mentors, astrologers, mystics, mediums, shamans, and healers with the world of knowledge, gifts, and talents ready to share with you. Today's session, we are talking to a very special lady, Isabeau Maxwell, also known as Beau. And she is one of the leading spiritual coaches in intuitive development today. She brings deep channeled knowledge and personal understanding to the field of spirituality. She's helped people connect to their authentic, natural, intuitive abilities since 2005. Isabeau is the founder of the award-winning intuitive development course, The Sage Method, the author of the best-selling book, Cracking Open, Adventures of a Reluctant Medium, and the creator of the popular online community, The Sage Circle. She's internationally recognized medium, touching the lives of people across the world and known for her compassion and accuracy. Isabeau brings peace and comfort to many through her energy work, transformative sessions, and teachings. Having earned a bachelor's degree from Minnesota State University with a major in mathematics and a minor in chemistry, Isabeau maintains a balanced perspective between this world and the next. She's down to earth, easy to relate to. She offers a safe space for students and clients to develop their intuition on their spiritual path. Please welcome Isabeau Maxwell for today's topic, Intuition Thrives on Healing. Hello.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm very excited for our session today, and it's such an honor. Thank you for your time. I guess I really love the idea of this topic, especially intuition, because it's been so important to myself in my own process, the times when I didn't listen to it, and then obviously those times when you do, and learning, the huge difference between that. And I think it's such a great place for people who are starting out in their journey as well to tune in on. Can you start there, I guess, perhaps with intuition and how that's different for everyone?
There's there's so much, it's so big, right? But when we're starting out, especially if we're dealing with things that are like a brick wall that we just can't get through, or old traumas or triggers that keep coming back up and over and over and over, and we just feel like we can't push through, sometimes spending some time and focus on your intuition can be really helpful, because not only does your energetic field change, but as a result of your energetic field shifting more in sync with what you want, the outside world starts to sync with that energetic field as well. And that's when we start to see solutions and paths. And we call them signs. People say, well, they're coincidences. I like to call them synchronicities. You're either in sync or you're not in sync with your spiritual path. And I'm not a big fan of completely losing yourself into intuition and spirituality. I think that there's definitely a balance. But if someone said to me, how do I get to where I want to get to, heal what I want to heal, and live the happiest life, my answer would be to balance between your human and your spiritual. And that takes a little bit of practice to integrate that intuitiveness into your path.
I mean, what might a little bit of that look like if people are really new to that?
Well, I like to kind of demystify certain things, because this intuitive path can look like it's out of reach. So there's a few things that I love to tell people. Number one, and this might rub a few people the wrong way, but if it does, please stick with me, and then it'll make sense. Intuition's not a gift. It's not a special thing that certain people have. It is something that we all have, but the way that our lives are structured, we don't necessarily need it anymore. We're not moving to follow food. We're not, having to figure out how to survive from very young, we show up at school, they give us a list of the map and the door that you have to go in and what time you have to be there. So we're really in a space in this world right now where we don't need to use it so much. But the key thing is, here's the other piece that I like to kind of demystify. It's not how much time you put into it, it's the frequency. When somebody once a day in the morning takes 2 minutes, like 1 minute, 60 seconds to be like, you know what, here's my spiritual being. I am a spirit having a human experience. Just that simple reminder and check in is just as powerful as an hour of meditation. I know a lot of people don't jump into their spiritual path and their intuitive path because they're worried. I don't have time to do an hour of yoga and this and all these things are incredible. And they're perfect connection sessions for people who do yoga connect into their spiritual path and their intuition. People who meditate do that as well. But it's not the length of time you put in, it's the amount of intent you put in. And I want that to free people so they don't feel like it's too big of a hill to tackle. It's not. It can be just a few seconds, maybe a couple times a day to say, you know what? I am a spirit. I am connected to everything. I am having a human experience. And I acknowledge that. And I honor the fact that I have an energetic body that is affected by the world around it. I'm going to take care of it. When someone does that, I know that sounds short and sweet and simple, but it is short, sweet, simple, free. You don't have to buy anything or do anything. You just have to check in with your own connection on the regular.
Right. And that makes it so much more accessible too, doesn't it? I mean, if you think of all the things that we're always trying to change about ourselves, nobody's ever got time, everyone's too busy, but it's that if it's just a small check-in and then you start to feel, differently and notice different things, you can make it more consistent. I love that.
I remember when I first opened up, and this is another thing I like to share with people because I'm kind of that person that if I can do it, you can. And people say, oh, well, whatever. No, hear me out. When I was 32, all the way up until the age of 32, I'm a couple weeks away from that glorious number of 50 now. But when I was 32, I was a complete skeptic. I have a mathematics degree from college. I didn't follow a religious path or a spiritual path or anything like that. I wasn't against anything. That just wasn't in my life. If 1 + 1 = 2, I'm happy. Everything else is woo-woo and can go away. So I'm also a Taurus and type A. So, I'm hoping a listener's like, wait, that's me. Yes, if that's you, listen very carefully. When my grandmother passed, we were a couple thousand miles apart, and I was on the phone while she passed with the hospice room and everything. I'm very grateful for that moment. She was my mom in essence, and very maternal. A couple hours, like an hour or two after she passed, I was alone in my apartment. It was the middle of the day. I was trying to figure out if I fall apart on the couch or if I get an airline ticket. Like I was trying to survive that moment. And she showed up. She showed up in spirit form. The thing that was so striking is she was about 70% solid and right in front of me. So it was not one of those corner of your eyes. Like out of the corner of your eye, you see something. It was more, and I lovingly, jokingly say it this way, it was more a fabulous, terrifying moment of non-reality that popped in front of me. And I panicked. And then shortly after panic, when she went away, she showed up, smiled, winked, and then left because she's cheeky like that. And after that, I thought, what if that was her? And that was my introduction. And I just kind of found my way, through that. And now I'm here saying, if I can find my way through that, if I can do these practices and step into being a professional intuitive for years and years and years, and now I teach people across the globe how to open their intuition. If that's my path, anyone can access their intuition, because I was closed and completely untouchable with that. So I like to tell people that part of my story so they can say, okay, this wasn't someone raised with all the knowledge and everything. Yeah. And I remember many times after I met my first spiritual guide, I remember they taught me a lot. Most everything I've learned has been from my guides. I remember there's many times that I would approach them and say, okay, I heard about this thing that people can do with their intuition. So what higher level learning teaching do I need? And many times my guides would say, you just need to sit down and relax and focus. And it was like, oh, okay. So it's, I can relate to anyone that's like, wow.
That is perfect, especially with your science mind as well, that mathematics science side.
Exactly.
Being able to, because it's that logic brain that wants to kind of make it difficult for us and think through everything. So you're talking there about the mediumship side of things. So can you perhaps go into a little bit about how would someone know if they were a medium or a psychic?
Oh, I love this question. So with all of the people that I teach, it's a bit of a spectrum. So on this side, you can be, if you're all the way over here, you're psychic. And then if you're all the way on the other side of this sort of pendulum swing, you could say you're a medium. And everyone falls somewhere on that line. Most everyone, they're very close to being 50% medium, 50% psychic. They have their ways of accessing both of those. For me, I lean a little bit more toward mediumship. When I have psychic moments, I get really excited because it's not my strength. But someone who leans very strongly towards psychic can also have mediumship experiences. And my favorite analogy to help people feel the difference so that they can recognize it in themselves is if a person that you were reading, a living person you were doing a reading for, was symbolically was a giant lake, let's say, and you as the reader are going to approach that lake to get information for the reading. A psychic could walk off the end of the dock, jump into the lake, the energy of that whole big lake, swim around to different areas of the lake and pick up messages that like brightly colored messages that are underwater that are like, hey, you should say this. Hey, you should. So psychics have a bit more freedom to just go with the flow and submerge themselves in a certain arena or area or energy. A medium, however, would have to walk to the end of that dock and wait for a boat to come pick them up with a guide or a loved one in it. And then you get in the boat and the guide or loved one says, this is where we're going. And that's where you're going to go down into the lake to get a piece of information and then come back up to the boat. So mediums, it's very much like having a conversation. It's like having a tour guide that's bringing you somewhere to show you something. Whereas a psychic can just immerse themselves in different energies and feels.
I love that. It's a great visual too. That's very helpful. I'm a bit more of a visual person. That's great. So, and another thing that kind of came up when you were talking about that is we're talking about our mind and how that affects things. What about personal programming? How does that affect things like intuition? And
personal programming is huge. It's really big. And it is a large part of what I teach and talk about, because the number one thing that is blocking intuition is clutter, emotional, even environmental, but emotional, mental, that type of clutter is really what blocks the intuitive channel. And I know that there's that general message that says, hey, the more you use your intuition, it's like a muscle, it'll get stronger. But what we need to first focus on is that you're trying to use your intuitive channel that is full of mud and muck and worry and concern. The way that I teach this analogy is I tell people, if every emotional wound and situation, anything unspoken, any undone to-do lists, all of these individual little things that are in your mind, picture each of those things as a hamster on a hamster wheel. And all of those hamsters on hamster wheels are in your mind. And now your intuition is trying to navigate through that. So the number one thing that will open up someone's intuitive channel is actually to declutter. And not perfectly. You don't have to be completely decluttered. Just the act of the inner work and working on yourself, the act of healing, the act of growing, of resolving possibly an issue, setting a healthy boundary, navigating toward things that fill you instead of pull from you. All of this inner work, which comes from personal programming. We were told to do this, to do this. I was raised to be a people pleaser. And everyone in the community that I've met, I swear we were all raised to be people pleasers, and we put ourselves second, and we don't, take care of ourselves. If we can start to overcome that, that's when your intuitive channel really starts to open. It's already there. That's what the message I really want to get out is that your intuitive channel is already there, super strong. You will completely surprise yourself with how much you can access when you start to declutter it.
Yes, absolutely. And this is where that connection with the healing comes in, right? So the more you start working on yourself, the more you start saying no, using the boundaries, and, looking inward, doing that inner work, it starts to grow more and more and more. It makes so much sense. I love that.
It's big. And me personally, I did 3 years of therapy right after opening up. You know what I mean? And I encourage people, find someone you can talk to, find the supportive avenues that help you, find those inner work programs that can really lift you up and support you, because you will find that your intuition becomes a lot more easy to access.
And healing can come in so many different ways. That's the thing. It's so different for everyone, how you clear things, how you change things.
Yes.
And the practices of the boundaries. I love boundaries are so important. Can you talk to us a little bit more about those boundaries?
Boundaries, what a challenge, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Boundaries are so difficult. Well, I think what I would like to do is in conjunction with boundaries is talk about our energetic bodies.
Oh, yes,
because I think that when we can conceptualize how we're moving through this world energetically, then we can get more support for ourselves in setting these boundaries. So we were raised to take care of our physical body, personal space, right? Someone stands too close to you, that's not comfortable, et cetera, et cetera. Put clothes on so you don't freeze outside in the winter. I mean, we were taught this, but most of us weren't taught about our energetic body. So we've got our physical body, we have our spiritual body, which is the energetic body. And this energetic body expands outside of the physical body. Now, what can happen for most of us, especially shout out to all those recovering people pleasers, is that your energetic body is magnetic. What you think about, you bring about, that happens in the energetic body. What you want, what you put out there, that happens in the energetic body. But us people pleasers, we want others to be okay. Sometimes that means taking their negative energy into our own systems without even thinking that we're doing it. This is true very much so for empaths. You can even walk through a grocery store randomly and pick up negative energy from a stranger just because your heart is so pure and you want everyone to be okay. So when we have that personal programming, when we're trained to be a certain way and we're walking around with this really cool energy body, we can collect other people's stuff. It can weigh us down. Now, when we acknowledge that what happens in the energetic body is where everything happens first, that's where it's important to start setting those boundaries. What I mean by that is, let's say you are in a conversation with somebody and they yell at you. Your energy body is going to pick up the energy of their anger before the words ever hit your ears. So everything happens to you first energetically, and then second physically. So we get dressed and put clothes on in the winter to protect our body. It's a very wonderful thing to set that energetic boundary with your energy space too, so that when that energy comes at you, it doesn't go within first. It stays where it needs to stay so you can interact with it more consciously and more aware. When you also do this, I apologize. There's so much about the energy body that I could share. And I love it so much when people start to really recognize their energy bodies. But the other part too is whatever is in your energy body, you will attract more of. So when we learn how to release all of that old negativity that's not ours anymore, let it go, protect our space, set up a filter, what's supposed to come in can come in, but what's not supposed to isn't, especially the strangers, negative energy in the grocery store. When we start to do this, more of us is in the energy body, and we're going to start attracting more of what we want and stop attracting what we don't want. This makes it easier to set the boundaries. When somebody says, you know what, that's it, I'm not one more narcissist in my life, I am done. I am done. And they start taking care of that energetic body and their energy, the narcissist is going to be less attracted to them. There's less food for them to grab onto in that energy body. Negative coworkers, for example, people will start to see that they're not, complaining to them anymore. Well, why aren't they complaining to me? Because like attracts like, and what's in your energetic body is what you attract more of. So that helps. It's like an inner support structure in setting the boundaries.
Yeah, and it's a huge topic, and I love yeah, because the impact is so dramatic too. I think when you actually do start practicing that, you don't realize, but then when you actually start practicing it, you're like, this is working.
Can I throw out a fun example? I got onto my spiritual path. I met my guides and things like this. And then I learned this practice of GCP, ground, clear, protect. My guide taught it to me and said, yes, these things are out here, but if you do it in this order, it's very helpful. So I was doing that for myself. Things started to shift. I found myself reacting less. Instead, I was responding to different things. I wasn't getting pulled into as many negative situations. But the fun story is that we had a relative that would visit like every other month from out of town, like far out of town, would fly in and would stay in our home. And wow, was she negative. It was just, we were drained by the time she left every time. And what I didn't put two and two together with was what this energetic boundary setting could do. So I wasn't thinking about her. I was just starting to do this GCP energetic boundaries around my home. And I'm like, well, I'm going to circle my home as well and set the intention that only the positive comes into this home. I'm raising 2 kids. This is wonderful. And I started doing that for a couple of weeks, and she called for the next visit, and she called and she says, I don't want to offend you, but I kind of feel like staying at a hotel this time. And I went, whoa, this works. This works really well. And we had a much better visit. It was a much better. We weren't drained. Right. And I think that's a great example.
Yeah.
Of what that energetic boundary can do. Because we never talked about it. I was just setting it up for my home. Only positive, stress-free, good vibes in this household. And the non-stress-free vibe called and said, I don't want to stay there. I was like, okay.
That's great. That sounds like a very valuable tool.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is that something that you can, teach everyone easily, or?
Yes, it is. It's the number one tool I tell people to start with, because it's a game changer. There's a big reward for a very small amount of work. So like we talked about earlier, just checking in every day to remind yourself you're spiritual. This practice of GCP will do exactly that. And give it a week or so, you're going to start to see things shifting in your life in a good way. And it's really, it's kind of fun and magical, but it's a wonderful tool. So 3 steps: ground, clear, protect. And a lot of us, like I said, have done these different steps in different ways. But for this one, I tell people, think of things that really connect with you. So the step one is to ground. We're going to ground into Mother Earth. We're going to anchor in some way, shape, or form so that we can kind of go higher really with our intent because we're anchored in. Some people will use tree roots. You'll imagine tree roots. Some people will imagine like a pillar or a beam of light going down through into the earth. Whatever you imagine that works for you is what's going to work best. This is an intent exercise. It's an imagination exercise. This is not anything magical. You could just have to visualize it. So step one, ground to Mother Earth. Say, hey, Mother Earth, I'm just going to ground. Step two, after you're grounded, clear out with an element of your choice. Water, wind, fire, whatever it is. Imagine water pouring all the way through you, all the way through your entire body and washing away everything that's not yours to carry. All that stuff that keeps you up at night so you can't sleep, like all of the stuff that makes you irritable when you don't have a reason to be. Think about all of that going away. You can just imagine it as like sludge or clouds just going away. A lot of people like to transform it into white light so it doesn't land on somebody else. If that's your groove, I totally get it. So we've grounded, we've cleared, washed it away, wind blowing all the way through, fire burning it up, whatever works best for you. And then lastly, you're going to do the P in GCP, which is protect. And this protection step isn't like scary protection. This protection is a bubble. Imagine a bubble all the way around you. That's like a filter. And what you can say to this bubble is allow in what's supposed to be on my path, keep out what's not, AKA that relative. So, and for my highest good. So what you're doing is you're putting a filter wall, really, to set the intent that you won't carry what you don't have to carry, and you won't attract what you're not supposed to attract. This doesn't mean we're going to have, 100% perfect days. It means the struggles that we do have are ours to have, but we're not going to add to those. It's going to lighten your experience. And it's that simple. Once in the morning, once at night, once before you, I don't know, go see your accountant or walk into a mall, or you do it whenever you want to do it, but you ground, anchor in, clear, wash away what's not yours, protect, put a bubble around you, set the intent. And that's your first really boundary setting tool. From there, that is going to make it easier to set the human boundaries that you need to set.
That makes so much sense. And I love the way that you've made it very step by step, easy to remember. And it makes sense. And I like how you say, because, we still have people that are sent to us to teach us certain things and trigger little spots in us that are still needing to rise to the surface. So we're not talking about a perfect world of, without those people or those things that upset us, but they don't have to make us suffer, right? They don't have to drag us through. We don't have to.
Exactly. I call it being in the flow. When you are allowing your spiritual life to thrive, when you're allowing your intuition to guide you, then you're in the flow. So it's not that life is perfect, everything's fixed. It's that your highs in life are going to be a little bit higher. There's going to be more clarity. You're going to get more out of them. And the lows in life are going to be a little less low. So they're still going to happen. I have a really fun example that I love to tell. I was driving. I had an old Saab car it was old. It was like early 80s or something. I think it was born shortly after me. It was a really old car, but for some reason I had this really strong belief that it never broke down. And for like a year, it never broke down. And I identified with this car like that this is my car that's invincible. I pull up to a stoplight. I was on my way to a meeting. I pulled up to a stoplight, and all of a sudden I could hear myself, my intuition say the car is going to break down. And I thought, oh, I don't know if that doesn't match with my belief structure, but I'm going to listen. And I looked out my window and there was a mechanic, one of the larger shop mechanics right off the corner. So I took a right into and I'm like, I'm listening, I'm going to listen. And I took a right and I pulled into the mechanic, parked in a parking spot, and the car died when I pulled into the parking spot. And I was like, no way, you can't make this up. So I went in and I said, I don't know what happened. It died in the parking spot. I wasn't about to tell them all the weird stuff around it. They checked it out. It was a piece of plastic that broke. They replaced it. It was a couple dollars. I was back on the road. Here's what I mean by the flow, that the lows aren't so low. My car still had to break down. I don't know why. That doesn't matter. It had to happen, but I didn't need to get a tow. I didn't have to ask, have people call for help. I didn't have to pay for a tow truck, hundreds of dollars for a tow truck, and I wasn't late to my meeting for 30 minutes late. So these things are going to happen when you're in the flow. They're going to happen to your highest good.
I love that example because it's still, as you say, we're still human, right? We still need to function in the human world. We're not suggesting that, once you listen to your spirit that everything's just rosy and perfect.
Yeah. And if I could throw out too, that's a fun, whimsical, like example. That's just a little teaching fun example of being in the flow. But the truth is, when we do this, when we identify our energetic body and we are moving in our direction that we want to thrive in, we do have to receive some of the really hard stuff, because sometimes that's what we need to unwedge us, to move us, is sometimes the situation has to get bad enough that we get out. And so that's still going to come through as kind of a unfortunate motivator for us to make a big change. So we're not going to be able to shift that. Those Mack trucks hitting us kind of moments are still going to come through. They are for our highest good, and we are supported, even though they stink. But it's all in there. You just not carrying everyone else's stuff with you.
Right. Well, and that's because we do love our comfort, don't we? I mean, we do, we it sometimes needs to get really challenging for us to go, oh, okay, I think I have to go now.
Yes, I've been there. Yep, I have been there. Exactly.
I did want to ask you something, because you were talking about how you were before, like, you were very, to relate to everyone who might be thinking, that they're not of this kind of spiritual theme. But what was it like? So now that you've made such a big shift, because I know that some people get a little bit, they might be interested, but they're like, how different will I be? How will people see me? It's kind of like coming out of that spiritual closet, as we kind of say. Yeah. Can you just talk a little bit about how different that is for you now?
Absolutely. When I first opened up, I had so much fear and judgment around mediumship, psychics, intuition, all of that I had to learn how to not care what others thought. And it was a bit of like trickery what happened with me, because once I got over that hump, once I was able to say, you know what, I'm a medium, this is it. And this was before all the TV shows that everyone now understands mediums. Before, when I opened up, people would say, what do you do? And I'd say, I'm a medium. Well, I was so uncomfortable saying that out loud to a stranger, but I'm a medium because I became a professional medium. And a lot of people would say, what is that? And so I had to define it, which is interesting in itself. I communicate with the deceased. So lots of different reactions and things like this. But once I got over that hump and stopped worrying what others thought, I realized, well, I'll say it this way, I wasn't that important. Like I had that wake up call of like, wow, I was thinking it was this big deal, and it's just me. I'm just me. And so I found people to be extremely receptive and extremely loving and welcoming. And that really helped me. The transition from that kind of existence into the existence I'm in now came with a few other bumps. I lost a few friends because this was just a realm that they couldn't navigate and didn't want to. And I understand that. The really cool part is that the friends that I did gain love me more unconditionally. I have never had this level of support and unconditional love from friends and family now that I had before. Before it was just riddled in judgment. I divorced after 20 years because we couldn't step it. I changed so much that we couldn't grow together in that. And I didn't want to stay in that codependent kind of game that we were in that was really painful and brutal. And so there's going to be, for many of us, not for all, but for many of us, there's going to be loss, and we're going to have to let go. If I can say anything to people that are stepping into their healing path, the other side of this is 100 times better. It is, and I wish I could have convinced myself of that when I first started, because all I saw was people don't understand me, they're judging me, I don't fit, I'm going to be lost, where do I fit? Like, all of those things were just a heavy burden. This was the 3 years of therapy. I mean, I got the therapy that I needed to step into this. But the other side of this, I live a life that has so much compassion in it, so many moments of uplifting and powerful and beautiful and magical and connective. And every single person in my life now, I got to emphasize now, because I had to let go and set some really ugly boundaries before. But everyone in my life now loves me for me. And I couldn't have fathomed that before I opened up intuitively and stepped on my spiritual path.
Wow, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. That's very heartfelt, and I think so important as that message to say to people when they're thinking, as you say, you future think, and you always future think the worst, right? So, you know, that's calling you, even just stepping into that spiritual path or being more interested in it. And I think too, the world portrays it always as this crazy kind of, you know, you see movies and shows, and there's that person with crystals or whatever, and they always hype them up to be this crazy person. It doesn't have to be that way.
Ooh. Yeah. There's like nothing woo about me.
No,
I have a couple
really
decks of cards and I love reading cards. I do,
right.
but I also love axe throwing and, you know, hiking and watching a good true crime documentary. And it's just, it doesn't have to be in that level. Each person needs to be exactly where they're comfortable.
Yes.
And then that's where their spiritual path lies. There's no changing of what you love and what you do. It's just the simple acknowledgement that you're more than just a human body, that you are the driver in the vehicle. Your physical body is your car. You are the driver. So when you start acknowledging the driver of the car, that's when it gets easier to drive the car, right? On the timeline. And that's when all the good stuff happens. That's when you're like, well, I have picked up the cruddiest hitchhiker ever. Get out. Right. I'm not taking your abuse anymore. I got somewhere to go. So that's the mind shift that happens in a very positive way.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for that. I'm conscious of time, but I was wondering, is there, you know, for the sake of teaching people about intuition and how to access that quickly, is there time to kind of share one quick step to help people with that?
Yes. There are two that I love to teach. GCP is the first one. And I tell everybody, just do that every day for at least a week. You'll start to see a shift. The second one is defocusing. And this is a technique that everyone can get on board with and understand. The way that I explain it is what we're looking for guidance, whether you're looking to connect with a spiritual guide, with a loved one, with your own higher self, with your own, you know, higher source. And I work with people all over the globe. There's no one path that fits everyone. That doesn't exist. So you have to honor the path that you're on and take the teachings and apply it to what your what you're doing in your path. But this defocus works so well because what we're looking for is not in the material world. What we're looking for is in between the molecules. The molecules is, part of the material world. We're looking for what's in the space in between that. So this is the best example that people can connect with. When you see something out of the corner of your eye, I don't think I've ever met someone that hasn't seen something out of the corner of their eye. When that happens to you, you turn and you look to try to figure out what it is, and your eyes land on a door, on a table, on a chair, on a wall. You're searching the room or wherever you are to find out where it was, and it disappears. It disappears because the moment your eyes focus on a physical object in this room, this world, that's when you're no longer looking at what was out of the corner of your eye, because the corner of your eye is your peripheral, which is defocused. So if you want to start to feel what it feels like to see, feel, and hear your intuition, this is what I tell people. Carve out 5 minutes a day. Notice I am not big on an hour. I'm always big on I have a short attention span. So carve out 5 minutes a day. Sit about 3 to 4 feet away from a blank wall. Doesn't matter what color, just a blank wall. And allow your gaze, your eyes open, allow your gaze to land in between you and the wall, meaning allow your eyesight to relax. And then just stay open to any messages. If you need a question, this is the first question you start with. What is it you want me to know? What is it you, source, loved ones, guides want me to know? What is it you want me to know? And then relax and allow it to come in any way, shape, or form. When we do this, we're disconnecting from the agreed upon reality, and everything we're trying to access is in our intuition is not in the agreed upon reality. So defocusing it's gold. It's so easy. It's super fun. It reminds me of those pictures when we were younger, where you would stare at it, and if you could defocus, like magic eye.
Yes, magic eye. That's right.
Yes.
Pull it out slowly. Yeah.
Someone should make magic eye intuition posters. Those would work. So it's very much like that. It's kind of relax and defocus. I tell people, play with that. You're going to be pleasantly surprised.
Great. I love it. Yes, I'm going to be trying that one out for sure. I love that one. It's nice and easy.
Yeah. And fun.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's great. They've got 2 fantastic tools to go away with. Yeah. And there's also, you have a free gift for everyone as well. So we might talk about that.
Yes. This is where my passion is. If you can't tell, I love teaching. And what I did a while back was I took the top 5 intuitive tools that are the easiest to get into right away and learn, and they have the biggest results so people can start to feel their own intuition. And I put them together, and I give those tools to anyone and everyone. Like anyone, that's why they're free. I think everyone should have all of these. One of them is GCP. So there is a teaching video in there that's going to go into even more depth as to why that works so well. And then the defocusing tool is in there as well as a couple others like guide communication and such. But it's really important for me, even if somebody doesn't say, okay, that's it, I'm jumping into the full course and I'm really ready to learn remote viewing or card reading or something like that. It doesn't matter. What matters is that everyone, has access to these tools, because they will help you in your healing process. They'll help you with your inner work. They will help you tremendously. And that means a lot to me.
Absolutely. And because what you're really doing is you're connecting with this idea that we're not alone, which in the healing process is one of the most, it's the biggest struggle, isn't it, when you're feeling alone? So to have that connection it's fantastic.
It's big.
Yeah, it's huge. Thank you. That's fantastic. So the free gift link will be available on your speakers page. Highly recommend everyone to sign up for that. But also tell us a little bit more about some of your other programs and things that you have to offer.
Well, I've been teaching the SAGE method, which is an intuitive development course. I've been teaching that since Oh, 2008. I mean, it's years and years. And what that has transformed into over the years, the teachings have remained absolutely the same. They were given to me by my guides. It's a 7-week course, and this is why I'm so excited to work with you, because a lot of pieces in that course address personal programming in the inner work and how important it is. And so that is part of a program now that we have been able to extend into also kind of a community-based structure with additional courses, so you can really find your strengths. And we broke that down into, instead of one big huge course that it used to be, we've broken it into something that you can integrate into your life in a monthly schedule. So it's just easier. It kind of goes with my whole vibe of, it doesn't have to be an hour. It has to be 5 minutes every day. So it doesn't have to be this huge chunk that you do right now. You can, spread it out and integrate it into your life. It's a wonderful thing. We have people now in the community, which is really fun, because we do community stuff and we gather and we do retreats all over the world and everything now. And it's really meaningful to me, because I didn't have anyone when I opened up to really help me or ask questions. And it's been my passion to provide that to people who don't necessarily have that in their immediate circles.
Oh, how lovely. That's fantastic. And it is so helpful, isn't it, having a community?
That's huge.
Yeah. Fantastic. And what's the website that's the best one to get you on?
Everything can be found at thesagemethod.com.
Fabulous. Okay. We'll make sure we have that available as well.
Thank you.
Oh, well, what an amazing conversation. Thank you so much. I really loved where it's gone. And, the fact that you've shared your own personal stuff makes it, so much more authentic as well. It really helps people to connect and understand.
If I can do it, right? Anyone can.
I love that. I feel the same.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and your gifts. It's so appreciated.
Thank you for having me.
People will want to connect with you. Yeah, absolutely. It's been fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for listening. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.